It's always hard to know exactly how you draw connections between undergraduate things and entrepreneurship. But I would say one thing that's true of both philosophy and entrepreneurship is that at its best they are very interdisciplinary. Philosophy, you're supposed to ask these very, very big picture questions that sort of connect all these different parts of the world together. And as an entrepreneur, you have to do both. You both want to get the details of a product you're building right, but then it is interdisciplinary in that it's a detailed product. It's hiring people. It's the market. It's what are other companies doing? Where's the world as a whole going? And the good entrepreneurs somehow are able to combine this sort of micro all the way up to this macro perspective. And I think one of the challenges in most academic settings is that people end up specializing. It's all micro, and the entrepreneurship is interdisciplinary, which is always somewhat of a dirty word in academia because it sounds like you're a dilettante or something like that if you're interdisciplinary. Freshman, sophomore philosophy was actually more useful than junior, senior year, because by the time you were a junior or senior, it was sort of these much narrower questions. Freshman, sophomore, you talked about the big picture questions. Junior, senior year, it was sort of much more very precise analytic philosophy where you're sort of getting ready to be a grad student.
I want to just ask a quick follow-up on that, which is, so you've been touring the country, speaking at a lot of campuses. Before this, you taught this class at Stanford, or guest lectured at Stanford, I guess is the correct way to say it. I'm like, what have you been observing about business schools, about colleges, today that maybe is different or strikes you as interesting relative to when you were an undergrad or grad student?
I'm not sure that I'm not sure things have changed that much. There certainly is a tremendous interest in entrepreneurship. There's a tremendous interest in innovations. I think that's probably gotten much bigger in the last 20 years. There's a sense that this is very important for the future of our country, which I think was less true. I think this is maybe a silver lining to the 2008 crisis, that before 2008 there was a sense that people could do these conventionally tracked careers, and there sort of is a sense that that's less possible today. I would say that from my way of thinking, there still is a sense in which people are always a little bit too fixated on processes, on systematic formulas. And so even though the tracks are no longer working, people would then like there to be a track or a formula for entrepreneurship. I'll tell sort of one slightly indirect story to get at this. One of the things I did on this book tour was on CNBC, the TV show, the stock market TV show. I was sort of this guest co-host for 3 hours, and there's sort of ideas to get you to say something controversial so that they get the ratings boosted. And after, it was early in the morning, I was a little tired. After 3 hours, they sort of, we started talking about Twitter. It was like terribly mismanaged company, and probably a lot of pot smoking going on there. And then, as I was leaving the TV studio,
Twitter stock is like diving as you're talking about.
The CEO of CNBC came up to me. He was smiling. It's like, "You did a fantastic job. We'd love to have you back anytime you want to come back." I said, "Oh boy, what did I say here?" And then the Twitter CEO had a tweet. It was he ended up tweeting. He had no time to comment on it since he was eating a large bag of Doritos, so it was all sort of in good humor. But the larger context was that of that observation was actually that what matters is that you have a really good idea that you're doing something unique, and that the pro Twitter point is they did have that. Everything else got screwed up, but if you actually got the one orthogonal different idea right, that gives you a lot, and then you can mess up on a lot of other things and still have a very successful company. Whereas if you did everything else right, so no marijuana smoking, no really good management skills, if you did everything else right and you ran the perfect restaurant, it still might not be a great business. So
I can tell